Good morning or afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to Automation Talk. We thank you for logging in and joining us today for our live show. Well, as you know, you registered, and this is our DirectSoft Advanced, and it's going to be with DirectSoft5, but that doesn't really matter what version you have. You can go get an upgrade. Actually, you won't have a lot of the features if you don't have DirectSoft5. We'll show you what it is, some of the new exciting stuff they have in DirectSoft5. What it is DirectSoft5 actually has a lot of new features that our DirectSoft 1 through 4 did not have. And one of the main things is called iBoxes. They're intelligent boxes, and basically what it's doing is taking a lot of ladder code and compressing it and letting you get away with using one instruction versus, 4 or 5 or sometimes 8 and 10 instructions to accomplish the same thing. Go ahead, next slide, Tom. Introduction, well, DirectSoft5, like I said, it's full features, 32-bit Windows programming software. Supports all the DirectLOGIC families, as you see there, which is our 05, 105, 06, 205, 305, 405, and we've got some up here on the table. I know on the other side of Tom, we've got some of the legacy stuff, which is our 305s. We got the 405s, and as you can see on the video now, we've just got a little rack here with some 05 and 06, 105, and some 205. What we'll be using today is a 205 system, and it's this one right here, and it's got a 260 CPU. And in my honest opinion, I think out of the DirectLOGIC series, the 260 is probably the most powerful processor that we have. If you're not familiar with it, go take a look at the specs on it. But you can pretty much do anything you want to with the 260. If that doesn't do it, then look at our next automation controller, which is our Productivity 3000. All right.
I was going to mention real quick, Shane. Also, we always forget the history behind DirectSoft, and one of the things I think we've always said it was one of the first Windows-based ladder programming software.
I think there is maybe even a history slide on here if we go through a little bit further, because we actually show where it comes from and who supports it, whatnot. But it's standard ladder logic, RLL. If you're familiar with most anybody's ladder logic, then you should have no problems here. I mean, I came from a couple other companies that I'd used, and when I came in here at Automation Direct, the DirectSoft was no different than anybody else's. I mean, there's some stuff you just need to read the manual to understand if it doesn't work exactly the same, but it's not some encrypted proprietary language. There's 30-day money-back guarantee. Now, we do have a free version of the software. We'll show you that in a minute. There's no dongles. You don't have to worry about your disgruntled employees running off with the dongles. Now, you might worry about them running off with your passwords if you password protect your processors. And then free tech support. So if you got any questions about it, you can always contact our tech support. They do not charge you. There's no maintenance contracts. There's no the maintenance releases are free. So if you have any version of 5, you can go get the upgrades for that. You can get firmware downloads and whatnot for free. All right, next slide, Tom. Who develops DirectSoft? Well, Host Engineering, and they're in Tennessee. So they're not too far from us, so we actually see them weekly, and we can always just jump in the car and have a meeting face-to-face with them. They're always in our chats. And, communicating with us daily. Host Engineering, actually, it's sort of the same way Automation Direct was built, but they have actually came from another manufacturer, and they have been creating software for many, many, many years, so it's not like they were new to it.
They also do our a lot of the DirectLOGIC Ethernet type support,
communication
and stuff.
Right, a lot of our communication modules and whatnot. All right, go ahead, Tom. Next slide. And then our versions, as you can see there, like Tom said, it was the first Windows-based PLC programming software, introduced in '94's version 1, and this was on a little 3.5-inch disc. Yeah, I mean, when I first came in, we still had those.
I think it was a set of 3. Right. I actually still have an original set with version 1 on it someplace.
With new PLCs introduced in '96, they came out with version 2, and then version 3 was our 32-bit. Version 4 was in '02. We came out with some new processors. And then version 5 came out in '06, and that was the introduction of the iBoxes. And I think that was about the same time that the 260 came out. We revamped the 250 and came out with a 250-1. And if you'll go to the next slide there, actually it might be on the next one. I'll talk about this real quick. But
you want to go back right here?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I was going to talk about the CPUs that are actually supported in it. Keep in mind that all of our DirectSoft5 will support all of our DirectLOGIC PLCs, but it won't support not all the PLCs will support iBoxes. Right. So like what I've got in front of me here is I've got a 230 CPU. Yeah, there we go. See if I can get the guys to switch the camera there. There you go. I've got a 230 CPU. It's just got one communications port on it. You step up to the next one, it's a 240. Got two communications ports. Neither of those will support iBoxes.
Correct. Yep.
Get up to the 250-1. It looks just like a 260. It's got a bottom port on it. That'll support iBoxes. And then, of course, we're using a 260. We'll support iBoxes. So there's a list. But, yeah, if you have to get into a little bit heavier processor in order to use the iBoxes. Okay, on the slide, the packages, we have the DS100. It's a free download, 100-word minimum. Basically, you can program a PLC if you can write a project with 100 words or less. So if you bought a brick unit like the DLO5, that might work fine for you. You don't have to worry about buying the software, but you can download it and play with it and check it out. The next one is the upgrade, and then in the past, you had to show proof that you had bought every upgrade through the works. So if you had version 1 and we were offering version 4, you had to show, you had to buy version 2 and 3 before you could get to 4. Well, now if you have version 1, all you got to do is pay $249. We'll give you the latest DirectSoft5. If you had, any of them, it's just one-time fee, $249. You get the latest. And then if you don't have one, just buying it's $395. Used to there was packages. You could buy a brick package. You buy a 205 package, 305 package, 405 package. It got a little hard to keep up with, and some people would buy one PLC and then figure out later on they needed a bigger PLC and they had multiple packages. Well, it's just one thing. One big package covers everything. Actually, it's cheaper. It used to be $500. Now it's $400 for full blown.
Yeah. No, I loved it when we did this because it simplified a lot.
Much. Like I said, full blown used to be $100 more. We actually lower the prices on a lot of our stuff as we come out with new things, which is highly unlikely that any other company does that. All right, the features of DirectSoft5 is our iBoxes. Got the tip of the day, new looks. You can change the looks depending on what you like. You got different views. You can tab a lot of the views. And we covered a lot of this in our original DirectSoft.
Yep.
Here you got the auto-complete. This was a nice one. If you start typing out one of the instructions and you forget exactly what it was, it'll actually start doing a drop-down of what it could be. Being in tech, I mean, some of the CPUs, you could have a couple hundred instructions. Man, I don't remember that one. What was it? I forget. And, rather than grabbing your manual, you can just start typing and it'll pop up. New hardware support. Like I said, we've had some communications modules come in. Auto backup, and then we've got new help. All right, next one there, Tom. There we go. Those are the CPUs that are supported.
Yeah, unfortunately we didn't
we probably need to update those.
Because I know the 260 we're currently using is actually using firmware version 2.60. So.
But those are the processors that will support iBoxes, 05, 06, 250-1, 260, and 450. Like I said, they're higher end. But you can go to our website, and I'll show you that in a second. And you can get any of the firmware for free and update any of your processors. So all right, go ahead, Tom. Recommended systems, I'm not going to go through that. That's ancient. If you don't have that, I'm surprised your computer will even get on the web. All right, go ahead, Tom. What is an iBox? Like I said, it's an intelligent box. Like you said, just takes a lot of code and bundles it together to make one instruction. And somebody's going to ask, can I make my own iBoxes? Can I create my own iBoxes? Unfortunately, no. I know that's been asked a lot. Maybe in the future they'll do that. But yeah, basically it's we went out and asked everybody, what can we do to make things easier? Which instructions would you like to see easier? And that's how they created the iBoxes. All right, go ahead, Tom. And you can see how they help. You want to take that one? Give me a second.
Sure. Back in previous to the iBoxes and everything. Most of the time, if you had to do anything, it was, I'll call it high level, like setting up parameters for some instruction or something. There's all kinds of different parameters in memory that, like setting up a COM port. And I can't even really profess to the fact that we have a iBox, for the COM port, but basically you'd have to, use the load and out instructions, outward instructions, to push through the accumulator within the processor the various parameters you wanted to load into the different memory locations to actually initiate that thing. With the iBox, everything's in one instruction and everything's labeled. I guess for me the hardest part with the whole list of load out, load out, load out with different constants and variables and everything was trying to make sure I documented that rung, because I might end up with 10, 12, 15 small load and out boxes within that same rung, and to document it meant actually identifying the different V memory addresses and saying exactly what they represented. With iBox, everything's labeled. You're going to put your parameter in there, and you're done. So anything that took intensive programming in the past, the software developers have tried to take that and create an iBox and everything. Improved efficiencies, as you can see on the slide and everything. A lot of the editing stuff in DirectSoft5 has been enhanced to make it faster and quicker to find stuff and enter your ladder logic and everything.
Okay. All right, go to the next slide. What we got there? Well, like I said, there's 66 iBoxes, so we took a lot of code and condensed that down to 66 usable iBoxes, and we'll go through most of those, and I'll show you where you can find them and how you can figure out which ones will work best for you.
The neat part was they were placed into categories, groupings that make it a lot faster to find it. Probably a better example with programming would be setting up your analog module. I know I mentioned the COM port, but analog, you would have to set up all your parameters for your range and the type and the input.
And we'll show those.
Parameters.
And we actually had some customers request us show that before the show. All right, go ahead, next slide. Here's just a quick example. As you can see, this, can't see, sorry, it's like a little bit further than what I was hoping. I think we had some on there that were basically doing some math, and there was also some communications on there. But you can see all the instructions off the right-hand side of that slide, what all it took, and you can throw that into one. Basically, one iBox will take care of doing a lot of that kind of stuff. Go to the next one. I think maybe it had, no, maybe not. Maybe I took it out. I apologize. Maybe that was it. But yeah, we had one that was like some communications, of trying to do a lot of communications, and one iBox took care of so many instructions and made life so much simpler. All right, we're going to do a demo here, basically, because I'm sure that's what you came to watch, not Tom and I talk about slides. We're going to just try to jump around on here. If I miss something, maybe Tom will keep me straight, because I'm just going to start going through and just show you what I can, and y'all ask questions. I noticed that our guys over at Oregon Tech, I believe it is, has asked a question. That's a very good question. I'm going to hold off till we get to Q&A.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a really good one. I want to answer that one too.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, if I can get our engineers to go to the computer I've got here, I'm going to show a few things real quick, and basically it's going to be right into the demo. All right, as you can see, I'm at our website at AutomationDirect.com, and if you'll go up to our tech support, you go to our tech support homepage. Let me see if I can maximize this a little bit. Couple of things real quick. You can go to here and you can get our free software upgrades tools. You can also get the firmware upgrades in case you do have a CPU that is supported and it does not have the firmware upgrade like Tom and I had today. We're trying to program and figured out that, hey, it won't work with the iBoxes, and we had old firmware. We have so many CPUs laying around here, we lose track of some of them. Free software and demos, and over here we have example programs. Now what I'm going to use today, you can actually find that in here, but if you'll go down through our example programs, we actually created the program that we're using today. It was created for our web seminars, and after using it so much, I asked Bruce Perry over in Tech. He was the one that created it. I said, Bruce, don't you think this would be a good one that you can just go ahead and put out on the web? So he did. But you can download any of these example programs, but that's where you'll find the one that I'm going to use today.
And by the way, we're continuously adding new program examples for all the products on that page.
Yeah, and a lot of stuff that if Tom or I are creating something for this, we'll go ahead and send it off to Tech and have them put it out on that page. So, all right, as you can see, I'm in the DirectSoft launch. I'm not going to dig too deep into this because some of it we already covered in the standard DirectSoft seminars in the past. But if you're not familiar, you don't have to start out with launch. We suggest you start out with our launch screen. It gives you the chance to either go straight into the programming, or you can come down here to your communication links. The project that I'm using here, it's called Basic iBox. I forget what it's called on the web. It might have a different name. I Actually, I think I might have it out here. No, I don't.
What you looking for there?
I was looking just to see what, because it had a different name on it. Anyway, if you go to the DS launch, that's where you can start off with everything. But I'm going to jump straight into the software and show you a couple of things there real quick. A couple of things I don't think we covered last time was jumping into things that you can get yourself in trouble with. Yeah.
There's a couple of them. Yeah.
If you go under PLC here, of course you have your PLC modes. You can turn things on and off and whatnot. You can disconnect. We're already connected, so it won't show us there. Your link set up, it'll show you your transfer rates and whatnot. Now, when Bruce and I used to do the, it was an advanced DirectSoft, but it was on communications. We'd actually pull one of these open with Ethernet, and we'd pull one of these open with a serial communications and show that Ethernet was about, I don't know, 100 times faster.
Data transfer rates?
Yes,
Yep.
yes,
Gotcha.
much more.
Yep.
All right, back up, PLC. Configure I/O. I don't think we covered this last time. You can actually go in here to configure your I/O, and as you can see in our rack, it actually shows which modules we have in the rack. We've got a 260 CPU. You can see that we've got what input modules, output modules, and we have an ECOM 100, which is our latest Ethernet module, and that's how we're communicating. Now, if you notice over here, it says it has an A on every one of these boxes, means that it's automatic addressing. And it'll tell you where your addresses are starting and ending, or how many inputs and outputs there are, and it tells you what your address is starting and end. Now, if I wanted to manually address, I just click it, and I can shove in there what I want to manually address. And you notice the one that I selected would be an output card, and it says it's an empty slot. So I could actually manually address that output card if I knew that I was going to plug in an output card later on.
Time in the future.
Right.
Yep.
Maybe I'm going to program it now. Maybe actually I'm just going to dump in a program, and my customer only wants half the modules because they're buying half of a machine or a reduced machine. So you can go in and manually address that way. Go back up.
There's always reasons you might want to, hopefully not too often, but you might want to manually address stuff because of you want stuff in a certain order or whatever, or you want to skip up to higher numbers for some reason.
Password. I don't know if we covered this one last time.
I don't think we did. No.
You can password protect any of your processors. Now, a couple of key things, and this, you really need to take this to heart. If you password protect it, you need to write this down. If your programmer password protects it, you need to make sure you get a copy of that password. Tom and I both worked in tech, and we get this call daily that, you know, they didn't pay their programmer, so he left. They got in a fight and he left. The company split and somebody left. You know, you just heard everything. Well, meanwhile, there's a password on the CPU, and they couldn't get in to make any changes. So if you password protect your CPU, make sure that you keep your password. We can get the passwords out of the CPU, but upon doing so, it clears out your program. So a lot of customers are like, well, I don't have another backup copy of my program. Well, I hate to say, I'm not putting all my trust in one PC. I'm not putting all my trust into the CPU, so I want to make sure that I have multiple backups of my program, because that's a lot of time, a lot of money invested in programs, so do yourself a favor and keep some backups. But that's your password protection. Yeah, like I said, contact tech if you ever have one, you can't get it out. They can save your hardware, they just can't give you your program back. All right, diagnostics, you can find out anything you want to about your processor. Setup. This is one that you can get yourself in trouble with, but if you're ever having any issues that are just unexplained, uncontrollable issues, you call tech. One of the things they're going to tell you to do is go into Setup and go to Initialize Scratchpad, and basically what that's going to do is it's going to set all your settings in the processor back to factory default. I'm not going to do that right now.
Let me give a real quick example. There's a way you can take, like on the 260, and manually through the program set up parameters for port 2.
I'm going to do that in a second.
Okay, and once you do that, if you decide not to use those parameters for whatever reason or something, and even if you clear the memory, those certain parameters are going to be stuck in there unless you scratch the pad.
Right. Yeah, like Tom said, you can go up 250 and 260s. They have a secondary COM port, and you noticed here there's only port 2. You cannot change port 1. That keeps you from locking yourself out of your own processor. Port 1 on any of our processors are fixed. Otherwise, people would go in and make changes to it, either purposely or not, and lock themselves out, and you'd never get back in. So the bottom port, you can make all kinds of changes. You know, you want to do Modbus, you want to do some ASCII, or my favorite, you want to do some remote I/O. Oh, I used to love remote I/O.
Shane supported remote I/O extensively in tech.
But yeah, you can go in and make changes. So the bottom port of your 250, 260, even the 240s have some stuff. All right, no, I don't want to do that. So we're going to go back again. The PLC setup. PID. You can go into PID and you can create some PID. I'm not going to do that right now. And I'm going to tell you something. Tom's working on some PID stuff, and we're going to have a seminar and we're going to have some videos on PID just in general, because there's so much on PID. We could spend hours.
Right. I mean, for each type of processor we sell and everything, that could be a full show.
All right, and the last one I was going to show you you could get yourself in trouble with, but also you might not know this. If you need to clear your PLC memory, like I said, you call into tech and you're having some weird stuff going on, you're not sure what happened with your code, you might have programmed something wrong, you're not sure about some vMemory locations, maybe you got some PID overriding on some timers and you didn't know it. They're going to tell you to come in here and you're going to clear all, and they're going to tell you to initialize Scratchpad and check your program out and see if everything's okay, and then go from there. So those are some little key things there. But the PID, you can go to View and you go to PID View. It's not going to let me because I did not go in and set up PID. If I wanted to, I could go in here and
PID.
Yep, set up PID, and then I can go to PID View and it'll show it. I don't think they even have analog in this processor. Let's jump in real quick with the ladder, because that's what we want to show you, some of the iBoxes. If you look on the left-hand side of my screen here, this is called a data view screen. And you can go to Debug, go to Data View, New, and create one. There's also some hotkeys out here. You can create one. But as you can see on the data view, actually, you see this box right here, V7766. That is the seconds clock inside the processor, and it's actually counting up. So you can see what's going on in the processor. You can plug in any of your inputs, your outputs, X's, Y's, vMemory, C bits, whatever, and it'll tell you what's going on. You can see under status, it'll tell me. So right now, we've actually got the seconds counting up. The first set of instructions here, we're just going to show you what used to be and what you can do with iBox. Say you want to move a single word from one location to another. Well, you had to trigger that word, right? You had to load it, and then you had to out it to some other memory location. So we're going to do that real quick. As you can see in the data view, we're going to load what's in 7766 and out it to V2000. And if you watch the ladder, also C0 turns on, C0 turns off, and you see that it threw whatever that seconds clock was.
At that instance.
Right. Okay, now we get over to our iBox. iBox, one instruction. I know this doesn't seem like you're saving a lot of time, but it is. This is just a simple, and then we'll get to the harder ones. But you're going to move from one word to the next, and it's basically the same thing there. Just moving the same location, 7766 to V2000. Move a double word. Well, instead of an LD, you're using an LDD, and you're going to out to a double word. Same thing with the iBoxes. You can do the same thing. You go in and you move from one double word to the next double word. So you can save yourself just a little bit of time with that one. Like I said, those aren't really have a big wow factor.
The other thing it does, like I was saying earlier, by just on the LD and out, you have to really document remind yourself what is in that.
You're right.
Whereas with the double, it makes it a little simpler to, understand what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Okay. And also the iBoxes have a little code over here, iBox 201, to tell you which iBox you're using. Here's one that's a little bit better. This is an off-delay timer. We have a lot of customers will ask, do you not have a built timer for that in the past? No, we didn't. Or on-delay timer? No, we didn't. You actually had to create one. Well, the off-delay timer, as you can see, there's three rungs of ladder here. Excuse me. So C4 triggers your C500, which is a set bit. If it's on, C4 is not on, your timer is going to start counting. Timer times out, and it resets. So let's actually do that. I'm going to go over here to our data view. I'm going to turn it on, and as you can see, we set C500. Now, as soon as I turn that off, the timer should start counting. Now, if you'll watch down here, it should start counting. You can see the values, actually. So where'd I go?
We're actually timing up, but we're in an off state with the bit we're trying to look at.
Right. All right. Okay, so where was that? C4, yeah, basically 3 lines of code there. And
for an off delay.
Right, for an off delay. Well, the iBox, there is an off delay timer now, so it's just one instruction. Go in your timer, T1, your off delay time. It tells you what your seconds are, and then you want to output some C bit or some internal bit. So yeah, makes life a little bit easier. Same way with the on delay timer. Has only 2 lines of code here, but we have an on delay timer. One shot. I know the one shot, a lot of customers always ask for all kinds of one shots, on off delays, stuff like that. We didn't really have the iBoxes. You can add that now, but one shot you had to have a PD or a positive differential. Excuse me. You can increment. Well, the iBox makes life much easier. Push on, push off. What have we got? Well, you got 2 lines onto a counter because you've got your up, down, or your clear. And now with the iBox, just one instruction does it. Let's get down to what Tom mentioned earlier, analog setup. And this is what a lot of customers asked for, was analog setup.
And like I said earlier, here you're actually looking for your parameters. So I'm going to load a constant of 800 and put it into a dedicated memory location at V7 or V7662. That's actually part of the slot location and everything for that analog card. And then I'm going to add to the accumulator a value referenced off of hex 2000, and then I'm going to out that. That actually sets this parameter also in one of the analog cards. And again, for me, looking in the manual and on the online help and recognizing the different V memory locations that are associated by that analog module being in a certain slot, and knowing what parameters I want to set it up with as far as whether it's milliamp or current or the range 0 to 5, 0 to 10, whatever the parameters are. Once you see that and understand it, it's pretty clear, but to document that and everything or come back to your ladder code later, it's almost like in some cases if you don't document it properly, it's like starting over. And you also notice setting up these parameters, we're actually using a first scan only, and basically, it's one of those where we don't need to keep hitting this every time with putting those constants into those, or those parameters into those memory locations. So we only need to do it when we first go from program to run mode.
Right.
And then what do you have for me if I don't want to do that now?
Well, and keep in mind, like I said earlier, if you don't have one of these high-level CPUs, or was it 05, 06, 250, 260, or 450, if you don't have that, grab this program because it'll still help you out. But yeah, that's the old way. And a lot of times customer will buy an analog module. They'll have the DirectSoft software manual. They'll even have the hardware manual for, say, the 205, but they don't have, there's actually an analog manual for 205 systems. Make sure you grab that because it'll show you how to set up what we call the pointer way, or as it says on this rung 19 analog input, set up the old way. If you notice, the iBox actually calls it, it's analog input pointer setup. But yeah, you just go in, basically ask you the base, the slot. So it's pretty self-explanatory how many channels you got, what type of format you want, and where do you want your data to go to. Easy enough. Otherwise, yeah, somebody comes in and they're looking at this, you didn't document it well, and they're like, well, I'm not really sure what they were doing. I'm going to have to go get a manual to figure it out. So makes life much easier. Scaling, same thing. You got one rung with 4 instructions that you go into, ask you, what your raw is, what you want your high, your low, and your engineering units. Filtering. Yeah, look at this one. This is the old way. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 instructions, and heaven forbid if you get one of those wrong. If you will use an iBox, look what you get to fill in 5 blanks here, and it actually tells you what you're filling them in.
Right.
And it's going to save yourself a lot of time. These are some really good instructions and stuff that Bruce Perry did. High-low alarm setup. This is the old way. Some pretty good code he's got here, but like I said, it takes a little bit of time. Now you've got one instruction here for the iBoxes. Just fill them in, and you're ready to go. Everybody loves our math, especially on our DirectLOGIC PLCs, right?
Well, yes and no.
You'll love if you're used to our DirectLOGIC PLCs, you'll love the Click and the Productivity 3000 because math is so much easier. You don't have to worry about all this converting stuff. But BCD real, you can convert it. Yeah, you have to load it. You got to change it to binary. Then you got to binary to real. Then you got to out 2 words.
Yep.
Well, you got a iBox instruction that'll do all that in one instruction. I mean, that makes it nice, but still. The old accumulator math, you can see all the instructions there. Well, there's an iBox that'll do that. Some of the BCD numbers, I don't think there was any text on here what it was, but yeah, you're just doing some more math, and you can see the iBox there. Now, a couple things real quick. I think, actually, let me show on the help where we can go in. Nope, sorry.
What you looking for there?
We're going to show them the help with the iBoxes.
Okay.
And I apologize, I did not have this up earlier.
Let's see if
They did a really good job on the DirectSoft5 Help. You can go in and look at all the iBoxes.
I thought at one time it was a separate
No, go to the instruction set. I'm sorry.
instruction set, right?
No, you were already there.
Here we go. Intelligent.
While Tom's doing that, I'm going to explain something if they want to get the camera out and show over here with the 205 stuff I've got. Like I mentioned earlier, the 260 that we're using, we talked about the bottom port, and we're also using Ethernet. We're using Ethernet on the 260. I've got an ECOM card in here. You know what's funny is I think it's actually must have had it programmed or set up for a larger base because it had empty slots in it. But yeah, that was my fault. I didn't go in and initialize ScratchPad. But we actually have a cable here. I don't think I showed this earlier. But if you don't have Ethernet, you don't have to use Ethernet. You can use serial communications. This one just plugs into a serial communications on your PC if you still have a serial COM, which if you don't, you can get the USB to serial COM adapters that we sell. And then it goes to a RJ12, looks like a phone jack, and basically that's going to plug into port 1. Remember, like I said, port 1, you can never lock yourself out of it. And if you look at, say, like our that's a 260, our 230, 40, 50s, the 06, the 05, excuse me, and the 105, they all use the same cable. So you can program all of these with the same thing. And actually all of these will work with Ethernet except for the 105. There's no expansion on the 105.
Right. Or the 305 if you want to mention legacy products.
We're not going that far.
Okay. If you want to jump back to the software, we can point out in the help where to find additional, it's probably hard to see on your screen there at home, but you look under the PLC instruction list, there's actually a list of iBox instructions. So they're broken down to memory, discrete, analog, math, communications, and my favorite is C-Trio.
Okay, since that's your favorite, then you get to go through. No, we're not going to go through.
Actually, we're going to do a webinar when we get to motion.
Yes.
We're going to actually cover the C-Trio and the iBox instructions for it.
We had done some in the past with Bruce Perry when he was coming in here. We had multiple DirectSoft ones, and this is before we shifted over to our new AutomationTalk program. But yeah, the CTRIO is a counter input and output module. It's for high-speed counting. It's for doing some motion control type stuff. Let's just go to the analog helper. Yeah, and let me see if I can pull this out just a little bit. But yeah, if you go through the instruction set, go to the iBox instructions, you can go to any of these and look over, and you can see on the screen, I don't know how legible that is, it'll show you every processor that is supported, 05, the 06, 250, 260, and it'll show you exactly how it works. It'll explain everything for you right there. I mean, our guys put just tons and tons of information in the help file. So to be honest with you, I mean, I'm not saying don't get a manual. I always suggest having a manual, but you can get away with not having a manual anymore because the help files are so good. Yes, sir. Same thing with the memory. Let's just go here. It'll show you, which ones are supported, how it works, from word to word. Math. I'm just going to pick out a few of these. Yeah, this looks like a really complicated one. RTO-BCDD.
Real to BCD?
Real to double BCD with implied decimal point and rounding. That's a nice one. Actually, it looks really easy, though.
Well, if you had to do that without the iBox, it'd probably be 15, 20 separate instructions and everything.
The thing I was trying to get to is that the help files is very intuitive on everything, and I guess we're trying to keep in. All right. Yep, I got you. If we minimize this a little bit, it probably will show up, but we're also running out of time. Your engineers, they don't give us the whole screen. They just give us part of the screen, and I'm sorry. I was paying more attention to mine than I was theirs. But yeah, you can see over here in the help files, instruction list, then we went down to the PLC instruction list, iBox instructions.
Under the DirectLOGIC 0506.
And then as I was clicking through these, you can see that there's an instruction. I'll move it over here. It shows all the support, how it works, and whatnot. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap that one up. Let's see what I've got. Drum instructions. I'm just going to do one real quick. This is probably not going to work. I'm just going to internal bit of C100. It's probably already used somewhere else. And let's see. I want to do. Remember how I talked about the autofill? I want to do a drum instruction just because our slide said we're going to do it. So I'm going to start typing out drum. Well, guess what? I hit D and it gives me every instruction that starts with a D. Drum. Hey, look at there. I've got an E drum. Or I mean a drum, not an E drum. And I want to use counter. Now this is a big one too. I want to use counter 10. If you use a drum instruction, make sure you go look at the instruction itself. Come on, guys, help me out here.
There you go.
If you use a drum, the counter actually is tied to a counter. A lot of times customer will program a couple of drums, or they'll program a drum and then a couple of counters right after that. See, I'm using C10. If I'm not wrong, you need to check your instructions in the manual or in the help files, but usually a drum will take up 4 counters, correct, Tom?
That's correct.
So 10, 11, 12, 13. So your next counter that you can use is going to be 14. So make sure you don't use those. That gets people in trouble a lot of times. My presets, okay, we're going to keep it at 1 preset, and let's put 10 there. And my counts, I want to have outputs tied to there. Nope, it won't do that. Why did I do that? It's up here.
That's going to be your.
Yep. I hit enter instead.
Slide your box over a little bit. It's off view. There we go.
Yeah, we have to use a scan converter in order for y'all to see this, so we don't get the full control of our monitors. All right, so basically I'm tying an output to every stage on there. Let's just 1. Let's put 5 on that one. 5 on that one. And we'll put 10 on that one. And the best way I've always been able to remember this is remember the little wind-up music boxes, and you look at it, it's got the fingers. And as you wind it, yeah, and hitting the notes or the keys.
Notes, yeah.
It's basically the same thing, right?
Exactly.
I mean, as it comes around, it's hitting it. There's different times. There's,
So can you get this to play music for us?
Our PLCs have done a lot of stuff, and we've seen them do a lot of stuff, and I'm sure music is probably one that it has done. So you could say, okay, every time it came around, my first step, this time preset, I want output, Y1 to turn on here, so forth. But anyway, that would be a drum, and you can see how big that drum instruction is. It's a little hard to see on the screen there. All right, so we covered our iBoxes, we covered drums, the PID view. Like I said, just keep with us. We're going to do some PID stuff. Actually, we're running out of time, so let's go back. Tom, if you want to go to the slides and see what our next slide is. Actually, it's Q&A.
Okay.
All right, our first question, I remember.
This has to do with, we graduated from the DL05 to the 250-1 to the DL06 to the DL
Well, actually,
260.
Yeah,
right?
the 06 and the 260 are probably our newest DirectLOGIC processors. And the question is, read the question for us, Tom.
Basically, our audience out there understands that the DL06 is the same processor as the DL260. The only restriction is the I/O
Right.
handling capability between the 260 and the 06.
Yeah, the 260, you're going to be able to put hundreds of I/O because you can put it in a 205 rack. You can have expansion on the 205 rack, so you can have multiple racks. You can also have remote I/O. You can do remote I/O off the bottom, or you can network off this bottom port. So you can have a lot of I/O. But other than that, if you want to know the truth, yeah, it's pretty much the same processor. There's a couple little hidden things that we can't really tell you, but
Right.
yeah, it's the same processor.
Yeah, I mean, like anything in the electronics industry and everything, we can sit here and to be honest with you, the current manufacturing and everything, I couldn't tell you for sure they're the identical microprocessor or processors used between the two products, but yeah, one was kind of a fall off of the other to get us where we needed to go with the software. But if you start getting into the firmware and the different modules and those kind of things, there's probably a large difference between the structure and everything else that's done in the two units.
Yeah, the 06 it's a brick unit, so you have fixed I/O, and then you've got 4 option slots you can buy. There's a variety of option modules you can put in here, so you can add I/O to it.
Next question, is the iBox filter the same as the P3000 filter, or is it a straight running average? I guess I think we probably need to answer that offline on that one.
I'd have to look that one up.
Yeah,
never thought about it, to be honest with you. I know a lot of the P3000 stuff, the instruction sets on the P3000 have nothing to do with DirectLOGIC. We started from scratch when we came out with that. DirectLOGIC, it basically has a history from 1978, 1980, the DirectLOGIC PLC. So the instructions were sort of combined off of that, the technology from 70s and 80s and then on. I mean, we have improved on the technology, but that's where a lot of the instructions came from. With P3, this is all new, high-tech, high-level instruction, so I'm sure that it's going to be a better one, but yeah, we'll look at that before we answer that one.
I mean, this is a little off subject for today's webinar too, but the next question is the P3000 math instruction improved or easier? And basically, again, if you're trying to compare, what's going on with the DirectLOGIC math,
it's apples and oranges.
Yeah, it's way out there. I mean, the best way to compare the math in the P3000 to anything is it's set up in very similar to the calculator that you might find in Windows or whatever, with the scientific notation, and if you want to do sine, cotangent, pi, I mean, it's all in there. So it's not just improved. It's it's way out there where basically you can do anything that you would have to do with math formula.
I'd say it's improved just because of the technology behind it, the processors that we're using, the code that was written for it. But yeah, it's a lot easier. But yeah, you have a lot more power with the P3000.
Okay, there's a couple more questions here.
I'll let you answer those, Tom.
One of them I'd have to look up a couple things. I wouldn't be able to, but explain a little bit about TTD and STT. To be honest with you, off the top of my head, I'd have to go back and actually look those up, but we're going to keep a list of these. And
yeah, we'll get with you.
Yep.
Some of these we need to look something up, and Tom and I spend a lot of time trying to write this stuff for our web seminar, so we don't stay as in-depth as our tech guys. And keep in mind, you can always call tech support and ask them any of the same questions. They will not laugh at you. They'll answer anything you've got. But
and there's another question on here in regards to mapping I/O to Modbus addressing, and again, I think that's probably better handled for us to get tech to respond directly on that one.
Just make sure that you save those for us, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
All right, while Tom's saving those, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. Let me do this. Let me reach over you there, Tom.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I can go ahead and wrap everything up. But that was our Q&A. If you have any more questions, you can ask them. The ones that we didn't answer, don't worry. We'll answer these offline. We'll just email you directly, or we'll get tech we'll just forward them on to tech and get them to answer. A lot of times, Tom and I, we'd love to look these up so we know the answers as well. So just give us give some time. But thank you for all those good questions. Those are great questions. I want to thank everybody for coming in today and joining us for Automation Talk. I apologize for running over, but we just try to pack in as much as we can. Thanks, Tom, for coming in and helping with it.
Thank you, Shane. Thanks, audience.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.